Welcome, everybody, to the Raad Life, the only talk radio show that takes you along with host and age explorer Rod Gantos on his continuing journey of discovery into life's challenges, opportunities, options, and all the latest and greatest things that come with getting older. The Rad Life is brought to you this week by Your Home for a Lifetime, a company dedicated to empowering you to stay safely, independently, and comfortably in your own home. And now here is your host, Rad Gantos.
Here he is, Rad Gantos.
Man, I don't know. I'm just checking myself out. I don't think I've done a show in a baseball cap after 3 years, and it's not because my hair is receding. Okay, it's just I'm just having a very bad hair day because of all the rain in Southern California.
Oh, okay, all right.
You know, I just looked at Kai. I shouldn't have said that, right? I should just like keep the hair comments to myself.
That was a lost cause for me a long time ago.
But you know, you have reason, right? You actually paid in blood and hair up in D.C., right? And
well, you know, my grandfather used to say, "Better on the inside than the outside."
Ooh, I don't know how to take that. Well, in any case, you can stay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, but no, we have a great show, and it's a very interesting thing. We got all kinds of changing weather in South Orange County.
The
and
times they are changing.
The times are changing. We got rain. We got mudslides. You know, maybe it's just signs of the end of the world or something, right?
The apocalypse is around.
Republicans, longstanding Republicans are like retiring. I mean, it's just, you know, fire, brimstone, locust. What's next?
For those listening as later as the podcast, we're doing this in early January, the day after my birthday, by the way. I didn't know if you knew
Happy
that.
birthday!
Yeah, happy birthday.
And I had the same birthday as Elvis. Elvis is the day before. Richard Nixon and Joan Baez, which proves that astrology must be correct because you can't think of one without the other.
So we're about to take care of business, right?
Yes. Okay. So we're going to take care of business. We're going to say that we're doing this in early January. And shocking news,
January 2018.
That's correct. Two very long-standing stalwarts in the Republican Party here suddenly decided they're not running again. Ed Royce. Where's he from? Fullerton?
Ed Royce
Fullerton. It's Fullerton, parts of L.A. County and parts of San Bernardino
And
County.
even more surprisingly, I think he's still the wealthiest member of Congress.
Darrell Issa this morning. Right.
From Oceanside.
You know, you say surprising. Okay, I've been saying this for at least the last year and a half.
Nobody listens.
Nobody listens to me. Okay, so on that note, a little housekeeping, right? If you're listening to us, or if you're watching us, if you're listening to us, then I'm telling you, you can watch us live on OC Talk Radio's Facebook page and YouTube channel.
Yes.
You can also send us a tweet or what's the hashtag, Paul?
OC Talk Radio.
OC Talk Radio. Or you can also call us, which I know nobody's going to call, but what's the number, Paul?
We never get anybody to call. They always want to tweet or do something.
Just give them the number.
I'll give them the number anyway. 949-330-7761. 949-330-7761. Operators standing by.
And the only reason I asked Paul to give that number is so that he can get to say operator standing by every episode, right? But you can watch us on those. Sharing is caring, so share the link to all this stuff, right, with people that you know. This is a really dynamic time. I mean, it's actually kind of interesting, and it's really amazing that all of this stuff is happening at the same time. But if you've been reading the tea leaves for a while, that you know that this wave has been kind of coming. Okay, there's been a changing face to Orange County, and we'll get into that.
Yeah.
There was even a report on it 4 years ago, and later on I'll find it and I'll post it, or even during the break, maybe if I'll find it, I'll share it.
You mean we're not right-wing Republican county again here, like we've been for a million years?
But I'll tell you this: I don't think it's about the fact that people have been leaving the Republican Party and joining the Democratic Party. I think the Democratic Party has been holding its own, maybe slightly growing in certain areas that are more maybe liberal in North County, but it's because there's been a growth in independent and non-party affiliated voters. And we keep saying that the majority of people, fiscally conservative, socially liberal.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's
I mean,
me.
we're both sort of immigrant generations, children of immigrants, right? And that is very much the case. The only party, and I'm sorry, it's a repeat. People have heard me say this. The only party I ever joined and was a member of was the Republican Party. Right after I basically signed for the service, what was it under Reagan? The not naturalization. What was it? The draft equivalent. What was it? Remember?
I don't know.
There was like selective service.
Selective service.
You had to sign for selective service. I turned 18. I signed for selective service. I could vote. I joined up. Nobody told me I didn't have to join a party,
Right.
so I joined a party. So I joined the Republican Party. I think a majority of people and if you're business related or whatever, are fiscally conservative, socially liberal. If you've come from other places where there's been control and government abuse, then you're definitely very liberal and very freedom and equality driven, right? And the parties have just taken a detour on to varying degrees. But the Republican Party side, I don't think Ronald Reagan would get elected right now.
No,
Not anymore.
On the Democratic Party side, I don't know that Kennedy would get elected, right? So it's a different face of Orange County.
It's a different face of Orange County, but one of the things I think you see is people talk about this demographic change, but it's these immigrant groups who historically have been traditionally Republican, are turned off by the Republican Party, and two, my generation is much more Democratic. My grandfathers, both staunch Republicans. I think you see.
Are they still?
Well, my grandfather, he wasn't even American, and he went on and on about how the Democrats are terrible and it's all Jimmy Carter's fault that Iran is a big problem. And when George Bush was at 20% approval rating, he was still the biggest backer of George Bush and said, he doesn't even live in America.
So on that note, let's introduce our guest.
yes, please.
Okay, now I'm going to do Paul a solid here because he has a connection to the family. Would you, Paul, please introduce our guest today?
Yes. I may mispronounce his first name, though, because I'm not sure if it's Kia.
Kia like the car.
Kia like the car. Okay, so I thought.
He's driven.
His
Kia drives California
He didn't even
forward.
know this. This is the small world we live in. Hamadancy, his father, who had a mortgage brokerage firm, and his mother, did a show here for probably a year on real estate. Orange County, I forgot what the name of the show was already, OC Housing or something like that. And we talked about the housing reports and all the other stuff. And then he sold his company and lost interest in the show and went in another direction. And along the way, he kept bragging about his son.
Okay.
And he talked about, because I'm from the university, went to the University of Michigan. Hamid went to the University of Michigan. They were immigrant exiles from
Michigan?
from Iran, from Michigan. Yeah, really. We're all exiles
We
from
got
Michigan.
exiled from Ann Arbor.
Yeah, exiled from Ann Arbor.
And came here and started a better life and went to the University of Michigan and worked his way up and became very successful here in Orange County. Had a mortgage brokerage firm, sold it, and I'm not sure what he does now. He fools around with different things. So he would always brag about his son.
His son?
His son, who went to University of Michigan and went to Michigan Law School. I couldn't get into Michigan Law School. This is one of the top 3 or 4 in the country here.
See what I mean about him going on his diatribe?
Oh,
for
my
Michigan?
goodness.
I wasn't
And
kidding,
then
was I?
he went and worked for a couple of senators. He didn't go out and be a lawyer. He came out and worked for, and I thought, did you work for Tom Harkin? Was that the first one?
Tom Harkin for about 4 years, and then Sherrod Brown for about 2.
Sherrod Brown, who's one of the really interesting figures in the party from Ohio, a very progressive voice. Who still seems to get elected in a very red state.
So when did you graduate Michigan?
So I graduated undergrad in 2007, law school 2010.
Okay, and then was it straight to D.C.?
Yeah, no. So when I was in law school, that was when Barack Obama was running for president.
Uh-huh.
For me, that was a pretty inspiring moment.
Uh-huh.
So it really inspired me to go to public service, and I didn't know how, what, and somehow I ended up working for Tom Harkin, who's really just a truly, really great senator. Someone who really cares about people. He's the author of the American with Disabilities Act.
Right.
And he was one of the few champions for people with disabilities in Congress. And you just.
I know that from what I do for a living, from the interior.
I didn't know he was involved in the idea. I knew that Bob Dole was involved in on the Senate
he
side.
was the author of the bill. And someone who, when you asked him why are you a Democrat, he would quote Hubert Humphrey, and tell you that the moral test of government is how it treats those in the dawn of life, the children, the twilight of life, the elderly, and the shadows of life, the sick, the needy, and the handicapped.
Wow, politicians don't talk like that anymore.
It's and that was like what he lived by. And
that's more than 42 characters. I can't tweet it.
Yeah,
well, exactly. Donald Trump would never say anything along those lines.
No.
So
he would
well,
always.
Hold on a second.
I just want to say,
for those that are inspired by this, okay, because it's pretty friggin' inspirational. You go to school. We're okay. Just put it in context. We're 2018, right? I mean, you're talking 4 or 5 years ago, right?
So graduate 2010, so about 8 years ago. Now.
Yeah, okay, 8 years ago. Okay, and you're off to DC. So when you say I don't know how, but how the heck did you end up in that position?
Honestly, I was
Do you send in an application? Do you stand outside the Capitol building? I mean, holding a sign saying we'll work for What do you do?
Well, it was funny because I graduated when I graduated from law school. It was right in the midst of the financial crisis.
Uh-huh.
So not that I necessarily wanted to work for a law firm, but it's also a lot harder to do so. So I was studying.
Well, government's always funded, right?
Yeah, right. Government's not going anywhere. No, but it was.
But he graduated from one of the top 3 or 4 law. I don't know where they rank currently, but they're in the top 5 for sure. One of the top 5 law schools in America.
Well, what did you want to do? Like, was this something you knew you were going to do, or was it just like with Barack Obama, and that inspired you? Was politics on your mind?
Yeah. So politics has been on my mind since I've been very young.
Okay.
But the idea was that, okay, I'll go to law school, I'll work for a firm, and then I will then transition into politics.
Which is a typical sort of transition,
Yeah,
right?
no,
A lot of attorneys that are politicians.
It's pretty typical. But then, financial crisis comes, and, it's a harder market for jobs, and so
Right.
you got to work harder. And if you want to work harder, you think about what is the thing I actually want to do. I don't want to sit in a law firm billing by the hour for where as opposed to going to Congress and working to actually work on things that I care about.
Right.
And it was so I'm studying for the bar exam. I'm literally just sending resumes to random people on the Hill. Partly because I figured once the bar exam's over, I'll really.
Were you like stalking them on the internet for email?
No,
addresses
I was just looking at job openings, just blindly shooting resumes. Thinking thought process was, okay, once I finish the bar, then I can actually really start to look for a job, really be diligent, do coffees, do whatever. I get an email from Senator Harkin's office from the intern coordinator, and she says to me, we want to do an interview, but we need A, B, and C from you. And I'm like, well, I'm not going to talk to you right now. I got the bar exam in 2 days. Like, come back then. And she just keeps emailing me, and I kind of just blew her off because I have the bar exam, and I'm not trying to do anything. And figuring I'm never going to get that job because, whatever. And the morning after the bar exam, she called me at 10 o'clock Eastern time, which was 7 a.m. Pacific Coast time. We did a phone interview. She just blindly called me. Again, never thought it would lead to anything because I was half asleep, didn't know what was going on. And a week later, I get a call from someone on the help committee staff saying that they're undertaking this investigation in the for-profit college industry, and they really wanted to see if I was interested in talk, and interviewed with them. And then they offered me a job to come on as basically a law clerk. And after about 2 or 3 months or so, they offered me a full-time position.
So what do you think? What do you think it was, Kai, that made them want to chase you that hard? Because that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was, I graduated from University of Michigan. It was a great school. They were in need of people to really get down there and work hard. So they had done a hearing on the for-profit college industry. There'd been a bunch of secret shoppers who had gone to these schools, and these schools had made all kinds of false promises to people. You come to this school, I'll get you a job, $200,000 right out the gate, which wasn't happening.
Right.
And they had asked for like thousands and thousands of documents. They just needed someone young, smart, and hungry to get there and just literally just look at documents all day.
That's pretty awesome.
And so I did it, and it worked out.
So
and then you moved from Senator Harkin's office to
Yeah,
Senator Brown's office.
Right.
Well, so I worked for Tom for 4 years, and the longer I stayed there, the more they expanded my portfolio.
Okay.
Just because they liked me and liked my work
Sure.
and whatever. We had actually had the
No good deed goes unpunished.
Well, I got to go to Guantanamo Bay with Tom Harkin and Bernie Sanders.
Ooh, how cool is
which
that?
was a pretty cool experience. And it was also John Tester and Heidi Heitkamp, which are two more moderate senators in the Democratic caucus. So it was kind of just an interesting group of people.
What year was this?
So this was right in 2014.
So for somebody who's a child, from immigrant parents, here you are in Guantanamo, okay? When you say it's an interesting experience, I'm not letting you off the hook that easy, okay? Explain why.
What's
it was
interesting
I mean,
about
was
it?
Was it kind of a wild, weird kind of?
I mean, you've just heard so much. Like, I remember I was in I remember when all the Guantanamo stuff started. I think I was in college, and it was like this. There was so much passion against it. There were all these reports of how bad the experiences were there. And obviously, in 2014, Barack Obama has been president now for about 5 years.
Right.
He came in there with the idea. People have kind of. He had promised to close it. Still not closed today, unfortunately.
Right.
But the passion kind of dissipated. But and it was interesting. So the most interesting thing about it, though. So the night before we were in Miami. And we had dinner with the head of South Command, who is John Kelly. So, which is interesting because I never knew this man would then be chief of staff to President Trump.
Yeah.
But obviously he didn't really care about me that much because I wasn't a senator and he was more focused on the 4 senators. But it was an interesting experience to have dinner with this person who was a military guy, and I figured he wants to have dinner with these senators in case he's ever up for anything confirmed to build a relationship. I never thought he'd one day be chief of staff to President Donald Trump.
And what was your impression of him?
He was a military guy. The thing I remember is that, he was talking about Guantanamo specifically because there's been a lot of. So Tom Harkin, one of the things he wanted to do was just close Guantanamo as a base. Period. Not even not even the prison, independent
Just the
of
whole
it.
thing.
He thought it was a complete waste of money. And so John Kelly made two arguments. I remember at that dinner. One had to do with, this space is important for us as a like staging ground for everything that we do in South America, like when I'm going to help people in like Haiti or whatever. And two is like, it doesn't matter what I think of Guantanamo Bay or not. The President of the United States has given me the order that these people are to be treated humanely, and that's what I'm going to do until I get another order. And so he was kind of defending. I think he was just defending the Guantanamo's role at the military as a whole, not necessarily the prison, and two, saying, "Look, I'm going to do what the president tells me to do."
Which is in his position and his title is totally understandable.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, that he would do that.
I mean, 100%. And
Such an anachronism, though, that we secured the rights to this before the Cuban Revolution, way back in I don't know when we got this, in the 20s or the turn of the century or something.
Well, so someone told me a story that
I'll have to look it up here.
That they sent Fidel Castro a check the first time, and because he accepted the first check, it was considered that he because we had some deal with the Cubans, and by him accepting that first check once he took over, it meant he had kind of exceeded the deal.
He extended
Exactly, but apparently every check after that he just put in his desk. So somewhere in Fidel Castro, I don't know if Raul Castro has this or what, but there's just a bunch of checks because we still send these checks every year as part of our agreement. This is our fee.
We assumed territorial control over the southern portion of Guantanamo Bay and the island of Cuba under the 1903 lease agreement. Somehow we exercise complete jurisdiction and control over this territory while recognizing that Cuba retains ultimate sovereignty.
Yeah, well, we do good deals. Like we do the best deals, right?
Well, before Donald Trump was president.
Well,
I mean,
you keep talking about Kelly being chief of staff, and I think most people you didn't know that Kelly would be chief of staff. Most people didn't know that Donald Trump was going to be president,
including him.
There's a guy who's an Italian. I think his name is Luis Inglis, and he wrote this article before 2012. I believe he was the one. He's Italian, and he basically said, "I think if Donald Trump is going to run for president in 2012, and he's going to win," and he was widely ridiculed. I'm sorry, but like it's interesting because this is someone who in 2011 was thinking this, and he obviously compared Donald Trump to Berlusconi and a lot of things that was going on in Italy, and it's interesting that he wasn't right in 2012, but he was right in 2016, and no one would have predicted that.
No. I think it goes back to what we started with the conversation here, is that the changing face of Orange County. I'd say also we had people were asleep while there was a changing face to the country.
Yes.
I mean, you're talking about Michigan. We keep talking about this on the show all the time about how friends of Paul's that basically
all my relatives, all my friends are rabid Trump supporters back there.
He's like been on the left coast too long. He's just basically been.
I've left the tribe.
Yeah.
I spent 7 years living in Michigan. I grew up in Orange County, obviously, right? But it's interesting because it's an interesting dynamic because I spent 7 years living in Michigan. Then I worked for Tom Harkin. I worked for Sherrod Brown, both senators who represent swing states, which went heavily for Trump.
Iowa and Ohio.
Trump won Ohio by 9 points, which is I think more than either party has won the Ohio in a long time. I mean, I think Iowa was even bigger margin of victory.
Right, it was.
And I think it's these people feel left behind by our government. A lot of these people, it's
very much
it's
so.
Globalization. I think you talk about we need to. Coal is a very dirty fuel, and we shouldn't burn it. We need to do more about climate change. But I mean, there's been a lot of people forget that when these coal plants go out of business, it's terrible for those towns. Like, the entire town is built around that one industry. Everyone loses their job. They're on opiates. And when Hillary Clinton got up there and said, we're going to put a lot of coal miners out of business, that wasn't a great message to send to these people.
No. And shame on the Democratic Party for taking them for granted for so many years. They're just Democratic voters. We don't have to do much. And shame on the Republican Party for not paying attention to the decline and demise of these industries.
Here's the thing, right? We're a year in here.
Yeah.
And one of the first things that was being discussed was the cutting of training and retraining, right? I mean, if you are going to basically say you want to enhance the opportunities for people, especially people that are maybe have been trained and had a lifetime working in a particular industry that's now obsolete,
a mill, a manufacturing facility.
The first thing you would do is not ask for $18 billion for a wall. Is you would basically put a retraining program in the middle of every friggin' town in this country, and you would give opportunities to everybody who's interested. Because here's the other thing: the reality is that all these people that are saying my jobs are gone and I can't get a job, they have to come to terms with the fact that they have to be reconditioned and retrained. And if you're
maybe
above
relocated.
a certain age, and if you're above a certain age, you may have a resistance to that. And I'm American; I'm supposed to get certain things. We as a country have to get our heads around the fact that you have to continue to be competitive. You have to continue to make sure that your skills are relevant. If you are going to be in some sort of income generating, income earning position.
Right.
The fact that you are complaining about your coal mining job is gone, and then the conversation about, well, these companies are going to come in and put in money, right, and they're going to reinvest in America. Yeah, but they're reinvesting in automation.
Right.
Exactly.
That means
Yeah.
I have fewer people that are higher skilled running larger facilities.
Exactly.
Right.
The
So that
days of
doesn't
making
solve the
100
issue.
grand putting wheels on cars are gone. That
Well, you
my
know, it's-
relatives used to do.
It's
Right.
globalization. It's the changing the coal mines and all that stuff. But like you said, automation is the next frontier, and we don't, I don't like truck drivers. The number that's such a huge
Yes.
they talk about the number of men who drive trucks.
Mhm.
That is a position that's going to be obsolete because that's a really
UPS
easy.
just
Yeah.
signed up for a whole bunch of Tesla on
Exactly.
Exactly.
I heard. I saw Gavin Newsom speak recently, and he was talking about I think it was UPS for the first time ever. He had talked with their union. He said the first time ever in their negotiations they brought up the issue of automation because they're finally starting to see this is going to affect our workers.
Exactly.
And there are so many jobs where people like truck. Being a truck driver pays a decent living,
Mhm.
and it's
It's a very well paid actually situation. Yeah.
exactly, and like that is and those jobs are going to be obsolete. Those trucks almost drive themselves already.
And yet the writing is on the wall.
Mhm.
The writing has been on the wall relevant to that particular kind of task for years.
Yep.
So what favor are you as a union doing to your members by not actually allowing them to see the light and doing proactively preparation
Because
for
you're there
that
to
moment?
hold on to the past, just like when the railroads. At one point, the unions used to argue that they still had to have a fireman and a brakeman and all these other. They still had to have a caboose because they didn't want to put
When
these
was the
guys
last
out of
time?
work.
When was the last time somebody holding on to the past work, Paul?
But look, I'm not. This is not meant to say. Look, they're one of the first things you see in a lot of these states, in Michigan, in Wisconsin, in Ohio, is the first thing the Republicans do when they take over is gut the unions, because they know
Yeah.
that's going to allow them to do whatever they want. And you've seen it. The trends with income inequality in this country trend very well in terms of when you compare it to the union membership in this
So
country.
Kai, how do you explain that? I mean, I know we're veering a little bit off
Mm-hmm.
you and your run for Congress, but how do you? No, because I think it's important. It's a background that you've basically been immersed in. It's stuff that you personally experience in places, right? So when you're running for Congress in Orange County, but you actually have experiences in D.C. and Michigan. Why do you think, if the reputation of the Republican Party is that they come in and they basically gut unions, then how come did all these union members that basically voted Republican?
Well, it's interesting when you look at perceptions of Donald Trump. He wasn't seen as your traditional kind of Republican. He was because he
I
was
think even Republicans would tell you.
well,
that.
even but like he was against free trade. He had this populist persona that really look, there was obviously racism involved too. Let's not
No sugarcoating
let's
that.
not minimize that whatsoever. But
Right.
there was also people who saw somebody who said, I'm going to fight for you. I'm going to fight for your job. That we're going to bring the jobs back.
Right.
And, there was, Hillary Clinton, but, she made a lot of mistakes, which allowed her to be miscast. Those speeches to Goldman Sachs, so a lot of the Wall Street stuff. People had this perception that Hillary Clinton is for rich people, which is wrong. Hillary Clinton's policies would have helped the people in Ohio and Michigan and Wisconsin much more than Donald Trump's would have. And you see it with the tax plan, where literally 83% of the benefits are expected to go to the top 1%.
But he spoke to their pain.
See,
he gave voice to their anger
I've said it
and
before,
frustration.
and people will disagree with me, and you might disagree with me. Hillary Clinton's time had passed. If you had somebody like Donald Trump running and was getting traction, the Democratic Party had to get out of the way and basically support a Bernie Sanders. Now, Bernie Sanders may have been a little bit too much on one side, right? But it was time for a progressive. And, and that's why I say the Republican and Democratic Party both are going through a whole bunch of soul searching. The Republicans are farther along down the slippery slope. But from what I have seen, relevant to progressives basically being kind of marginalized for a while through the Democratic Party, and now they're getting their voice. Both parties are in a paradigm shift, and the institutionalized part of those parties is, I don't know whether it's holding on to influence, or this is just the way that we know the game is played, and this is just way too different for us. And maybe that's part of why people like Darrell Issa and Ed Royce are basically leaving, because they're saying the field has changed so dramatically.
Well, in a
I
weird
can't
way, you
continue
may
to do
see
what
the
I'm doing.
parties flip. The Democratic Party maybe become the party of the wealthier technology bases. The power centers on the coast are more Democrat. The Wall Street, Hollywood, Silicon Valley, the areas around Washington, D.C. are more democratically leaning. And the Republican Party, if they follow Trump where he's going, are going to be the party of the rural regions and the blue-collar regions, and that this billionaire
I think,
is taking them
but
in
you know
a
what,
direction.
Paul, but you know what, Paul? It's going to end up at the end of the day with
Right.
human beings is it's on the delivery. You got to deliver.
Well.
They may wait one election cycle, 2 election cycles, but you got to deliver.
Right.
If you can't deliver on the promise you made, which is for anybody with half a brain thinking beyond the bubble that they live in, you cannot bring back coal miner jobs. You cannot
and
bring
manufacturing,
back,
steel mills,
yeah,
and all this
obsolete
stuff,
industries.
Here's the thing: Donald Trump is not going to deliver on his promise.
No.
In 2018, the Democrats can take back the House. I'm hopeful going to take back the Senate. In 2020, whether it's Donald Trump or Mike Pence, there's going to be a new Democratic president.
Right.
And the thing is, though, like, it's not about Donald Trump. You know, that we have deep problems in our country that have nothing to do with the fact that he was president. That if you impeached him tomorrow and he disappeared, we'd still have really deep problems that we need to solve.
So where did the Democrats miss the boat in the last election cycle?
Well, I mean, look, I think it was the biggest mistake was that Hillary Clinton basically got a free pass in the primary. Every single Democrat who could have ran sat it out. You know, Bernie got in there not thinking he was going to go anywhere.
Right.
And you know, he was it was
just to make a point.
He, you know, he wanted to go in there to make a point about the issues he cared about.
Right.
Never thinking that I mean, I don't ever imagine in his wildest dreams he thought he'd get the traction that
as
he
far
did.
as they didn't, yeah.
And you know, it speaks to, you know, a yearning in the party to something new.
Did it remind you of the first run by Obama?
Oh, you know, it was interesting because it did a little, you know, and it was interesting because when Obama first ran, I was in law school, whereas when Hillary ran, I was in Hill. I'd worked in politics. I kind of had a different view of things, but you know, people were so passionate about Bernie. You know, Democrats win when we believe in our candidate. You know, when people are in. You know, look,
both sides win when you believe in your candidate. Look how passionate people were about Trump. Yeah,
and you know, you know, again, I think Hillary Clinton would have been a very good president. I have no doubt in my mind. But like, you know, there were too many people who didn't feel passionately about her. They looked at her as the lesser of two evils. And look, and I had a lot of problems with her. One, just because she's, you know, fairly hawkish. You know, she's someone who has once said if we have to, we'll wipe Iran off the map, and that was never something I was comfortable with. And you know, if Bernie Sanders basically got no support from the establishment whatsoever.
No,
that's
she
clear,
was given a green pass.
And you know, he got so close. I want to give him all the credit. I gave him all the credit in the world for running when no one else would, and really making a real fight of it. And you know, it's if anything, it's not just about Bernie Sanders, but it's about the power of those ideas that he represents and how much our party believes in them.
Well, I think the legacy of his campaign is that it also changed the way that a campaign can be run. It changed the narrative. I mean, I was very passionate about Obama, and I was involved on a grassroots level in the first run, and Bernie reminded me of that, and I never verbalized it the way you just did, but it's absolutely spot on. Regardless of party, if you don't have a passion for the candidate, it doesn't carry. And especially as long as last election cycle was.
But interesting now, I saw this on CNBC. They were talking about this the other day, or MSNBC, and they said that the candidates, though, who have won in recent special elections or who came close, even like the guy down in Georgia, have been pretty bland candidates. The guy that won in Alabama, the guy that won in Virginia.
But is that a reverse reaction
to Trump?
All the
yes,
mayhem
that I want that maybe steady will win the race. Maybe I need less drama.
Look, I mean, I think we're winning as Democrats because Donald Trump is unpopular. We're winning in Alabama because Roy Moore literally we won barely in Alabama because it took Roy Moore being everyone deciding he's a child molester and he shouldn't represent us.
Right.
It's not look it's not we're not winning because we've learned anything new as Democrats, and that's the biggest thing that scares me.
So do you think that reality that you just enunciated, do you think that reality is clear to the Democratic Party?
No, I mean people when you just like the Republicans won this last election because they said no to Barack Obama for 8 years.
Yeah.
With no plan for what that meant. And that's why when they got
didn't know what to do.
They didn't do it. Well, I mean, for 8 years they said we're going to repeal Obamacare, and all of a sudden
we have no plan.
We have no plan to repeal Obamacare. The emperor has no clothes. And
right.
my biggest concern is, we'll take back the White House and we'll take back the Senate, we'll take back the House, and then we'll lose it again 2 years later because we won't know what to do with it because it's been an interesting experience running for Congress.
So where do you stand in all this stuff? What voice do you? Why
are you running?
Why are you running?
Look, I decided to run because of the travel ban. Like straight up, that was the like I always thought I would run at some point in my life. I thought it'd be like 10 years from now.
So it was the travel ban.
I decided that night I want to run for Congress. I kept asking people, thinking they would all tell me it was a dumb idea, and they said no, go for it. And then I talked
You
to
asked them. That's what you get for asking.
And let's be clear, you're running in what district here in Orange
I'm
County?
running in the 45th district against Mimi Walters.
Mimi Walters, another establishment person who's been in multiple jobs and has deep roots and pockets here in the county.
So you're running. You got energized to do it this right now because of the ban.
I decided because of the ban, by the ban, and then but you know it's also like I've been on Capitol Hill for a long time, and it was frustration with kind of how it works over there. You know, it's you know, there are things I'd like to see differently in our politics and in our government, and a frustration that, you know, there's things that aren't getting done that I'd like to see.
So what are the frustrations?
Well, you know, it's Barack Obama lost in 2000. Not Barack Obama. The Democrats lost the House in 2010, and they lost, and we lost the Senate in 14. And that means for 6 years of Barack Obama's presidency, there were so many things that were left undone. You know, whether it's paid family leave, whether it's paid sick leave, whether it's doing something about climate change, you know, which is to me the greatest existential crisis of our time. You know, you have a whole Republican caucus who literally denies its existence. You know, it's when they talk about climate change in the world, they have to take into account the fact that you have a Republican Party who literally doesn't agree that it exists.
Okay, so you've been on the Hill for a bit. I've always just been like gobsmacked. How can you deny that? What is the reasoning behind it? Is it purely financial? Is
Money.
it purely
No,
not?
it's not completely financial.
Money.
The most interesting thing to me is
That's what I thought. But I'm just
these people, some of these staffers on the Republican side completely agree this stuff is all ridiculous. But they're like, but you know, they don't lose, their bosses don't want to lose a re-election. You know, knowing people on the Republicans who are Republican staffers, talking to them outside of like the work contest, they all know this is all BS.
So is it just funding from companies that would now be burdened with additional regulations?
The Koch brothers and
that's entirely it.
Okay.
I mean, you know, it's but also, you know, the Republican Party has created this, like, you know, they created Donald Trump. They basically said every arbiter of news is fake. They're the one, like the New York Times. Like, you know, you saw it with the tax plan when they said the CBO said this is going to increase the deficit. They're like, no, it doesn't matter. CBO is wrong.
Right.
And so, you know, it's no wonder that their base doesn't believe anyone is.
And for 10 years of talk radio, they've been whipping these people up, thinking they could control them. First through the Tea Party, and then they lost control of them with Trump. They've whipped these people up with this false narrative that everybody's out to get you in the whole world. Everything you're hearing is false. Trust us. Don't believe anybody else.
So you're running.
And it's
You're
turned on them.
You're running for the congressional district.
45.
Which is mostly
45.
what, Irvine? And
So Irvine, Mission Viejo, Lake Forest, Tustin, North Tustin, parts of Anaheim Hills and Orange, Villa Park, Costa de Casa, Rancho Santa Margarita,
Right.
thereabouts.
It's a big.
It is a
district.
pretty big district, and you know it's Hillary won the district by 5 points.
But that's got to be a rarity because this is the first time Orange County's gone for a Democratic presidential candidate in a long
since
time.
FDR.
Since FDR.
But you say rarity, and I remind you of the Changing Face of Orange County report that came out 4 years ago. That basically
looking back, it's a
said-
rarity. Looking forward, it may be a trend.
It's been a work in pro. In 1984, Ronald Reagan won Orange County with 76% of the vote.
Wow.
And then in 08, Obama got pretty close. In 12, it was around the same margin, and then Hillary won by 9 points. And it's this changing face. It's a combination of one, this changing face of Orange County. Two, there's a lot of voters here who don't like Donald Trump and what he represents. And you know, Orange County was always trending in this direction, but him being president is only exasperating those trends. And you know, we're gonna flip in 2018. We're gonna flip all 4 of these seats. We're you know, now that Royce and I said we were gonna win those seats anyways, and then we're gonna knock off Dana Roybacher, and then we're gonna knock off Mimi Walters, who is, you know, there's a famous Churchill line that an appeaser is the one the crocodile eats last, and you know she's someone who has backed Donald Trump 99% of the time on everything he does. There's very few people in my life who I agree with 99% of the time.
Right.
The only bill that she hasn't voted with him on is the Russian sanctions bill, which he eventually signed anyways. And you know,
Did she support the tax plan that
she did
takes
sup- she
away
did- she
the
did support
state
the
and
ta-
local taxes and all that stuff?
She supported a tax plan that is really bad for the people of Orange County. At the end of the day, as a representative, we are here to represent our constituents. And it was clear that what's not a popular bill in Orange County. In fact, it's really bad for the people here. And, you know, she didn't care because the billionaire donors of the Republican Party told them, if you guys don't pass this tax plan, we're done. We're not funding your party anymore.
Right.
And she's more beholden to them than she is to the people she represents. And, you know, there's that's what's wrong with Congress. You know, I just think that, you know, it's really important that we listen to the people we're supposed to represent, that we hold town halls, that we're accountable and we're accessible.
The minute that the driving force behind elected officials' existence becomes getting reelected versus doing the work that they're there to be done, I think that's when the thing just goes south.
You know, and I always say, look, I obviously want to win this campaign, but like, I'm not going to Congress to be there for 40 years. I'm going there because I want to get stuff done, and I'm not going to be afraid to show political courage to do that.
So given the district, what are some of the things that are district specific that you basically are focused on?
Look, I mean, I think right now in California and Orange County, the number one issue is cost of housing. You know, Orange County is the third most expensive county in the state, and you know it has all these other ancillary effects. Like imagine you graduate from.
I think you qualify for assistance if your joint income of $80,000 a household.
Yeah,
which is like insanity.
Which is insanity. You know, it's you know, think of, you know, there was a report done by I think Orange County Business Council, and they were talking about the eight biggest economic things facing the future of Orange County, and they talked a lot about the cost of housing.
Lucy Dunn's been here many times, yeah.
You know, and one of
I don't like her. She's pushing for the toll road.
Well, just be for imagine if you're an employer and if the cost of housing is so much, how much do you have to pay people to attract good employees?
Yeah.
Imagine if you're a graduate of UCI, which is a great university, which we're fortunate to have in our district.
Yep.
You come out with a ton of student debt. And then, how can you possibly afford to live here? Almost no one I went to high school with.
Yeah, but you know,
your friend's raising his hand over
Kai,
here. Yeah.
Again, we have a tendency to look at things in a snapshot versus on a movie reel, right? When we were building, I was involved with people.
I like that analogy. A snapshot instead of a
we
movie reel.
We look at a snapshot. And
frame by frame rather than the whole picture.
But because that's how we are. We operate.
You got to get the mic closer to you.
We operate everything on a quarterly basis. Okay, we want people to basically spend money this year and then change their car next year. We don't look about long-term savings. We don't look at sustainability over a long period of time, shelf life of 7 to 10 years. You know, because if we did that, oh my God, the economy is going to crash because there's no expenditures. Nobody's spending money discretionary, right?
I mean,
the thing with this is, when you have developer after developer after developer after developer being allowed to basically pay fees to cities in lieu of providing affordable housing as part of their matrix, and I know I'm gonna piss off a whole bunch of developers, and I am in a construction-based business, but here's the irresponsibility.
There goes your career.
No, but here's the irresponsibility of that. The irresponsibility of that is that when you don't do that, okay, you're shooting yourself in the foot because you want to put all this affluent, service-oriented businesses in there that are going to be staffed by people that cannot afford to live anywhere nearby.
Right.
So now you have put burden on infrastructure, you have put burden on everything else, you have endangered people because now they have 2-hour drive to everything, right? You're not being very smart and strategic.
Well, I mean, think about one, the traffic congestions you've created in a place which is the worst traffic anywhere in America, and two, think about the environmental impact of having these people sit in cars for 2 hours to come here. Like, there's all these other ancillary benefits, impacts, not benefits, of this stuff just from the fact that, you know, these people can't afford to live here and they have to drive 2 hours just to work.
Now you've got all this mess. Now you're going to basically do a Band-Aid kind of approach that is basically based on what I can make money-wise from selling bonds in the next 5 years, and then I'll never pay them back, and I'm going to put a road in that's going to lead into a bottlenecked area that is going to do nothing to relieve traffic, and then I'm going to overcharge for access on that road because it's a toll situation.
Sounds good to me.
So well, because it's not running in your own backyard,
right.
Which, by the way, it will be. Right?
So sounds like an elaborate shell game.
It is a Ponzi scheme. I mean, I'm going to call it like it is. And then when you have an agency, when you have an agency that is now basically a cash cow making money on every development that happens in that area because it is supporting the building of the toll road, and there's no incentive to kill that cash cow by actually paying off your bonds, because then you can't cut $1 million deals to people, right? So this is what I mean by a snapshot. We do these decisions in a snapshot. Next election cycle, next quarterly results, next whatever.
Politics is notoriously short term.
No, I want to go back to what you said about the quarterly report, because that's one of the things you see with these corporations on Wall Street is all they care about is hitting their targets for the next quarter, with no thought as to what's going to be good for the economy long term, what's going to be good for our company long term. You know, it's all about how do we hit our financial targets this quarter, because
I'll be gone in a couple of years.
Well,
I'm going to take the money.
You know,
and
we
run.
run campaigns the same way. We run campaigns and we say anything and everything during an election cycle, and we are driven by nothing but the win, right?
The biggest thing is
what do you do the day after?
Take a break.
Start raising money for the next one.
That's the point. You know, I will, if I get elected, I literally will take the next day. have to turn around and start raising money immediately. People who have
Yeah.
gone all out for me, they'll be so excited, and I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna need you to give me money. And if I get to Congress, I'll spend at least 6 hours a day on the phone asking people for money.
Yeah.
And it's ridiculous because what does money have to do with, like, Donald Trump spent half the money Hillary Clinton did, and yet he lost the election. And you talk about Bernie's appeal. It was the fact that he was like, you know what, I'm not going to do this. There's a corrupting influence to money. It's these people you talk to, and they all want something. No one's giving you money. People aren't just giving you money for free. They all want something from you. And when you run for office, it's hard to get out of that mindset because it's so much of what you do.
So what are you going to do day one if you win?
What am I going to do day one if I win? First, I'm going to take a nap the day after the election because I'll be exhausted.
Okay,
No, look,
what about day two? We'll let him have day one.
One day off.
I think the first thing, the most important thing, is to build a good staff. One of the reasons that Tom and Sherrod are both such great members is because they have a really good staff that they give their freedom to go out and run and kind of do stuff. Because as a member of Congress, there's 100 things you're trying to do at once, and you need to have good people you can trust.
And one of the things I keep reading about Trump is that he has trouble attracting staff. There's a lot of unfilled staff positions. There's rumors of another big turnover coming.
Well, true
here.
leadership is to let people have the autonomy to actually do what
exactly.
they need to do.
You can't micromanage. The best members of Congress are not the ones who micromanage their staff. They're the ones who have the staff they can trust to go out and do the things that they don't have the time to do.
What does the staff do?
You know what? Tom Harkin used to quote. There's this famous quote that senators are constitutional impediment to the smooth functioning of staff.
They get in the way of staff.
Honestly, let's be real. The staff does all the work. The member just makes fundraising calls all day, and they show up and give speeches. But the best members are the best staff.
So Kai, before we get closer to the end, I want to make sure that we give out the website.
Yeah.
What is the website?
So my website is KiaForOrangeCounty.com. Kia F-O-R. So KIAFOR OrangeCounty.com.
So KiaForOrangeCounty.com.
And are you being funded by Kia Motors here?
I am not. You'd think because they're headquartered in the district, but
yeah.
So far they haven't sent any money our way.
Okay, all right.
Maybe you should blanket them with letters.
No. We've actually decided we're not going to take any contributions from corporate PACs.
Okay, so what makes your campaign different? What's one of them? What else?
Look, I think that the biggest thing is I have the experience that if I went there from the very first day, I'd know exactly what I was doing.
You know where the bathrooms are.
I know where the bathrooms are, but look, Donald Trump has shown us what happens when you put someone in office who has no experience. It hasn't worked out well. And I got more experience in government than Donald Trump, and I have more experience in Congress than Mimi Walters. And, she's been there for 4 years, and she's not done a good job of representing this district. And people are not happy. And, I guarantee you that she's going to lose this election in November, and I guarantee you that in January she's going to be running in Dana Rohrabacher's seat because that's where she actually lives.
How many different seats has she held? She started off as a mayor, and then she went
I
to...
believe she was Laguna Niguel City Council.
Yeah.
And then she was mayor, and then she was, I believe, State Assembly and State Senate. Which the most interesting thing, though, is so for the State Senate district, you actually have to live in the district. And she had a house in Laguna Niguel, which is not in this district. She had a one-bedroom apartment that she rented with no washer dryer in Irvine, and said she would live there, even though she had a husband and 3 kids who actually were all in Laguna Niguel and still registered to vote in Laguna Niguel.
Right.
Steve Young, who was running against her, used to send flowers to the apartment just to watch them wilt. At the time, the seat wasn't competitive, so it didn't go anywhere. But she's actually, and now she lives in Laguna Beach.
And that actually is something that you hear with a bunch of people. I could list a number of people that had kind of like they established a beachhead where they were going to run because they weren't living there, but they were possibly a potential candidate for that particular.
Well, and I'll just say this, and maybe this is is nasty, and I shouldn't say this, but I've heard through Mimi's been on the show here a couple of times and talked about she's very party focused and very toes the party line, as you said, and others have been here and talked about her. Said she's one of these people that just keeps running and running and running. Partly because she likes, I guess, serving and doing these things, and partly because she's built up a lot of debt along the way, and the only way to pay it off is to run for something else.
I don't know. I've heard that her ambition in life is to be a senator. And obviously that's not ever happening.
And not in California.
Not in California. And she's been in leadership in the Republican Party. I think she's someone who views herself as the next. So when Kevin McCarthy, because there is the person from California who's number 2 in the House, I think she looks at it like, when he's gone, I'll be next in line because there'll always be someone from California in leadership because they need the money from California. And I think one of the things she toes the party line and she focuses on, does everything what they say is because she wants to be the Speaker of the House or something one day, and that's how you get there.
The party apparatus here. We had who was the mayor of Mission Viejo who ran against her on the Republican side?
Greg Rath?
Greg Rath.
Yeah,
He's
we've
been
had
in
him
a
on
number
a
of
couple of
times.
times.
And he was very frustrated because it was very clear to him when he arrived and said, "Hey, I want to get involved and run in politics." And they said, "Great, but go get in line. Mimi is the anointed one that
See,
has been
that is the
picked
same
all the way
exact,
along the
that
way."
is the same exact thing that stuck in my craw, and I have nothing against Mimi. You know, I mean, people, I believe, at some point in their career, if not throughout, they hold on to still a certain element of being of service. Because let's face it, right? Putting yourself in that situation, regardless what party, putting yourself and your family in a situation. I mean, it is a committed, demanding, stressful situation to
Very
be
much
of
so.
service, right? Especially when you basically have to stand. I mean, any city council member will tell you, I have to stand there and listen to you tell me 3 to 4 minutes, whatever the heck you want to tell me from a podium, and I have to have a smile on my face,
Right.
right? And then it goes on from there, right? So I will say the one thing what you just stated though is like, you know, stand in line because there's somebody in line. This is the attitude that really rubs me the wrong way. It's the same
Right.
thing what happened with Hillary. It's, you know, we need to go back to it's the best person for the job, given their qualifications, but not only given their qualifications, also given their passion, given what they may want to do, because there's something to be said about fresh blood.
100%. Look, I think I hate this idea that people tell you wait your turn. You know, in 2008 they told Barack Obama, wait your turn. It's Hillary's time.
Very much so.
And it's this.
Dude, I was told that when I wanted to run for planning commission in the city of San Clemente. Somebody basically looked at me and said, "Well, you know, you got to earn your keep. Can I, like, you know, earn your bones, and you got to try it for 3 times before." I'm like, "What the heck is this thing?"
There are no turns. You know, we need fresh blood. We need young, diverse, progressive people in Congress who represent communities who have never had representation at the federal level, and who have the vision to take this country forward in the direction it needs to
Do
go.
we know any? Are there any out there?
I mean, I
Where's
like
the big arrow?
Look, you know, we
do.
someone who has the vision to take this country forward, given the wake and the wake that the fact that we elected Donald Trump as president of the United States. You know, the Democratic Party is in the worst position it's been since before the Great Depression, and you know, every time Barack Obama hasn't been on the ballot, we've done terribly.
Yes.
It's that fundamentally, and like that needs to be fixed.
And
what
unfortunately-
what the heck? Why don't they have their head out of the proverbial?
And
backside?
unfortunately, under Obama, and I'll say my biggest criticism of Obama was that he allowed the party to slide that far. They lost how many seats in Congress? They lost how many governors' races? They lost how many House assemblies in various states around the country? The Democratic Party got decimated under 8 years of
You know-
Barack Obama, and I don't know if that's all on
But
his
but
shoulders
it's
or
the same way that the Republicans run on nothing other than "I am not Obama." Okay, and then basically, I'm sorry, but strategically, regardless of personal feelings, strategically, you run Hillary on the Democratic side when the Republicans are teetering, is to put in a lightning rod that has an established credibility with the whole Republican base to
Right.
basically just come after. You put the biggest target you possibly could as a Democratic Party,
because it was her time.
just strategically, just because it's her time. And you have a
It was time
situation
to cash
now
in all those
where,
IOUs.
where if you're going to be a Democrat running on nothing other than "I am not Trump,"
You're going to be in trouble too.
I'm telling you, it's just
Yeah, it's
it's
not
the
enough.
same future. You see what happened to the Republican Party? There is nothing that's stopping the Democratic Party from going exactly in the same direction unless they wake up.
So let me ask
Look-
you the hard question. And I know many people listening. We're mostly a business channel. We have a lot of conservative people
We
listening.
are not on this show.
Not on this show. Why pick somebody young like you with no experience? You have experience in the staff level, but you haven't been, I don't know, a local mayor or other sorts of things. You didn't come up through the local
Well, you know, you look,
politics.
local, there's a lot of great things about local office, whether it's local mayor or city council, but like the job that you do there, the duties you have there are very different from Congress. Congress is a very unique place and requires a unique skill set. And look, the thing about me is like I'm gonna go there from the very beginning and not just be one of 435 members, but a leader in changing the direction of this party and changing the direction of this country. And I'm gonna build the best staff I can of any freshman member in Congress. I'm gonna know which I'm just going to know how to get things done and be able to deliver for people here in Orange County. It was what they care about.
Can I just say something? Labels are very important, right? And
Right.
maligned labels are really kind of crazy part of our reality, okay? Socialist, remember that thing with Bernie? I'm like, does anybody look, like I said, helicopter versus just like myopic? You're telling me that the word socialist is the same application in the United States as it is in friggin' Cuba? No, it's not. The labels you got to look beyond the labels. Progressive has become sort of a similar situation. Okay, I'm going to read you this. Progressive definition: making use of or interested in new ideas, findings, or opportunities. Okay, how is that a bad thing regardless? Okay, how is the word progressive something that is not appealing, whether you are a conservative or you're on the liberal side?
Because it has a dog whistle connotation that you're not for.
No, it
you're
doesn't.
For social change.
The only
and
reason you're against
uh,
that word, if you look at the definition as being making use or of or interested in new ideas, findings, and opportunities, the only thing that is the anti-of is established, entrenched, okay, influence and power base.
I'm going to give you that.
That is the threat. That is where the threat comes, because
Brad,
progressive as a word, you could. You're a progressive Republican. You want to put money on the table that within 5 years we will have a progressive Republican label?
We used to. Teddy Roosevelt was
Yes,
progressive.
Teddy Roosevelt.
He ran on the Progressive Party when
Right,
he
and
didn't get
you know what? I
reelected,
don't care. You'll never be as cool as Teddy Roosevelt riding a moose. Okay, so
But that's why they invented that's why they co-opted the term progressive and put it into use, because liberal had been so bashed into the ground.
if I'm a Republican, I'm okay with progress.
Right.
But if I'm Republican, I'm not okay with progressive.
Absolutely.
Well, I don't know if they're okay with progress either, because Donald Trump's trying to take us
Backwards.
backwards. So
No, that's nostalgia. Okay, that's
fantasy.
That's Pleasantville, right? Before the color came in.
You know, one of the things, and I just have to say this before we end, I really sat and looked hard at myself and say, how did I miss my friends and family back there? How angry they were, how upset they were. I knew things had declined over a long, slow, steady decline. I grew up in Detroit. When I was a kid, it was the fifth biggest city in America.
But wouldn't you need progressive ideas to basically reinvent that economy and those communities?
Well, Detroit's turning around. It's there's been some green shoots there, and there's actually a guy there who I graduated college with, named Abdul El Sayed, who is running to be the first Muslim governor in the history of the United States.
Wow, interesting.
Pretty impressive guy.
So the point I was going to make is this: that what they have failed to come to grips with, and they're desperately trying to find somebody who will address and hopefully reverse, is the fact that when I was a kid, you could graduate with just a high school degree and make a middle-class living. How? In a factory, in a mine.
When were you a kid,
in a
Paul?
mill, in the 60s.
Okay,
yeah.
that's
All
how
right.
many years ago?
All right, but I'm just saying, but that whole thing was built, that whole facade of the Midwest when it was thriving in the 60s
Time
and into
progressed.
the 70s.
There's the word again.
Exactly. But now you have to have more than a high school degree to make a middle-class living. The retail jobs that you used to rely on are gone. The truck driving jobs will soon be gone. The mills and the manufacturing and the mines are gone. You have and rather than leave or rather than adapt and get some better education, they have chosen to watch this thing decline over a long period of time. My friends, my family, my relatives, and bemoaned the changes that came with it, social changes.
Because we don't sell the moment of adapting as an opportunity. Okay, we don't basically, labels and words are very important. When
People
you
don't
basically
wanna
tell
change.
me, right, you
People
don't want to
don't
change.
wanna
You don't want to
change.
change. But if I presented you with an opportunity, whether it's out of fear or out of greed, you will be motivated to take action. There is no leadership telling these people that you have an opportunity today that you did not have when you graduated high school.
Well, it's interesting you say. I watched one of the town halls.
You can work less and make more. You can reinvent yourself and do something that you feel more good at. It feeds your soul as well as your pocketbook. But nobody presents it that way. It's the old formula of the brick and mortar. And if it doesn't fit that, nobody's telling you there's an alternative.
Well, and I'll just make 2 points.
And then showing you how to get there.
2 points. One, the nostalgia they seek, the days of working in the mines, the mills, the factories. I worked in a factory. And it's miserable. My father started off working in a factory. He said, I'm going to make you go work in a factory so you'll never want to go here again. This is the most mind-numbing, soulless work that you can do. It paid well, but it was not pleasant work in a factory, in a mine. So that was one point. And the other thing is what you said. When I saw town hall before the election finally took place, when Bernie was there, and he went back to on CNN, they took him back to West Virginia. And you thought they'd throw eggs at this guy because he's basically saying, hey, I'm not going to come and pander to you and promise that I'm going to bring back coal mining jobs. Because not just for environmental reasons, the other decline in coal mining has become technology. They don't need human beings to go down and dig in the mines anymore. And hallelujah, because a lot of them died and got black lung disease.
Lung was terrible.
It wasn't a good thing, but it did pay well. And so he asked them, how many of you are unemployed? Vast majority of them. how many of you would like to see coal mining come back? The vast majority. And he said, what if I could give you something better?
Mm-hmm.
Would you take something else? And everyone went, yeah, you got something else? We're just desperate for what was.
You know, we haven't provided that vision for what that is.
Correct.
Though. You know, it's yeah. Of course, people there's no nostalgia and people don't want to change, but we haven't even tried to adapt to what that change is. You know,
right?
Look, coal mining.
Exactly.
Part of the reason coal mining, like you said, is going out of business is one because of the technology, two because the incredible growth in natural gas in this country.
Yeah,
they're
cheaper.
It's
fuels.
cheaper and it's less polluting. Whatever, and yet there's been no thought, okay, so what happens to these coal miners next?
Right.
You know, or the fact that in so many of these towns there's a huge opiate epidemic. The number of people who died in America of opiate abuse in the last year is an staggering amount, much more than that number of people ever died in a single year because of HIV.
We have a lot of focus
because they've
on
lost
this show.
hope and
But
they take desperation.
We have a lot
drugs,
of focus
yeah.
on seniors in the show, and that is the largest growing sector of opiate abuse is basically prescription drugs for seniors.
Well, you talk about the other problem we have in this country is just retirement security.
Uh-huh.
You know, first of all,
Bingo.
Social Security does not pay enough. Straight up, you cannot
Can't live on it.
You can't live off Social Security, and you know, not companies don't do pensions anymore.
Right.
And the
one
ones,
out of 10 we've
they're
seen
benefits.
statistics.
well, the ones that do, their pensions underfunded,
Right.
and the rest don't. And so when you talk about you worked for 40, 50 years.
No long-term care
And
insurance in any companies. You got people that are basically turning 65 at $10,000 a person
Yep.
with about 20 to 30 years of additional lifespan. Nobody has enough savings to see themselves through there, and you're basically turning around and selling them everything from reverse mortgages to overpriced walk-in tubs, right? And this is, and I'm sorry, but it's a lack of leadership on both parties.
And the reason
there is no vision.
I got to jump in for 1 second because that's what this show talks a lot about, and that's me. I'm just turned 62. I think the next adaptive crisis that we didn't think about what happens to the coal miners when coal mining goes away, and they just suffered, and now they're angry, and they lashed out, and the mill workers, and the factory workers, and the retail workers, and all these people have been displaced by either globalization or technology. The next pissed off group I'm predicting right now 5-10 years from now will be the baby boomers, who will suddenly say, oh my God, we're going to live longer than any generation ever has in history, and we didn't do enough to save money, and how are we going to pay for it?
Nobody told me. It was more important for me to basically change cars every 2 years and basically be spending money on credit that I didn't have.
Bigger houses.
I grew up a part of my life in Kuwait, and we were expats, but we were in Kuwait, and I remember ads running on TV. I don't know if they ever did in this country. I wasn't young enough, or maybe it was before my time, before we got here. But they ran ads where a kid basically takes a piggy bank and with her father walks into the bank, into a bank, a woman, right, a girl, to open a savings account. There was an instillment of saving as a goal. There was vision for planning for the future. There were things about making sure that the education levels and the availability of education was there for everybody to bet. It's not enough to say
live for today, baby.
You have the right to basically have a good life. We also have to provide people the opportunities to have a chance at achieving that.
And you have a certain obligation to plan for it. George Bush famously said when the
that's
economy
not
tanked,
liberal,
go buy
that's
something.
human.
He said, go buy something.
No, he said that after 9/11.
Oh, was that after
It
9/11?
wasn't the economy tanked. It was after 9/11. He said basically said go buy a big screen TV.
Yeah.
Like because the economy is not going to do well, and it's the idea of like we that's one of the most ridiculous things.
Well, there were no cars in Detroit, so you couldn't sell cars.
It's
So I point that out to you as your work, if you make it to Congress or as you continue to work and strive to do other things, there's another looming crisis on the horizon, on the foreseeable horizon. What happens to the baby boomers?
Well, it's also Orange County is an aging county.
Absolutely.
Like that's the other thing. We go back to the cost of housing. It means we're not able to attract younger workers, the millennial workers we need to keep the economy going. It means Orange County in the next
largest concentration per capita of seniors in the country,
and it's only growing.
Yes.
And it's only so you talk about
One
not
big
just a problem.
leisure world if we don't pay attention to
Well,
it.
you talk about it. So we talk about retirement security. It's an issue that really is going to matter for the future of our county.
Yes.
In terms of where we're going to be.
So where is the buried head in the sand on that one? Because I don't see a lot of thinking on that side, on a
From the
policy,
cities,
on
from
an
the-
overall planning.
My old boss Sherrod Brown has done a lot about this, and so has Bernie, in terms of the idea of needing to expand Social Security benefits.
But here we are, like in affluent Orange County, right? And we have the largest concentration per capita of seniors in the country. of which the largest is in South County. And I don't see people moving out of their houses. I don't see young people being able to afford those houses.
Or cities having symposiums on what are we going to do to deal with this.
So here's the thing. A couple of election cycles ago, Kai, I actually asked people that were running for city council in South County. I said, what are you doing to address this issue? Because you have a large population. Each one of those communities has a high median age. A lot of people are living in these houses. They're not moving out. You're losing the youth of the community out. The future leaders of the community are leaving because they can't afford to be here. What are you doing on a policy level to address this? Because if you're not, you're being irresponsible.
Or how are you going to handle that population? Are you going, because they're not going to drive. They're going to need more hospitals. They're going to need other services that you're not planning for if you don't change this demographic.
So that point is really critical. One, that demographic is we gotta handle the fact that you're not going to be able to drive. You're going to need these services.
And from a quality of life perspective, not from a medical care perspective.
Yeah, 100%. But you talk about people who are my age who. People always tell me, why would you want to live in Orange County? It's just such a boring place. We got to do more to attract young millennial workers who want a certain kind of lifestyle. It's the urban, walkable development where you work, where you don't necessarily need a car. And, you can live and work and hang out all in the same areas. You look at D.C., you look at New York, you look at San Francisco, you look at these areas, the cities are booming with people my age who are really smart, who are really talented, who we need more of in Orange County.
See, but what you're now talking about, now you've crossed into high density. You've now crossed into changing the nature of these communities.
We're not sleepy suburbia with white picket fences anymore.
I'm not saying we need to change the nature of every single community, but there needs to be a place for it in Orange County.
Right.
That high density, one, that's more supply of housing. Two, supply of housing that's not going to require people to drive around in cars. And
I think we've made some of the Irvine Company was really a pioneer in that to create these sort of neighborhood concepts that you could start an apartment, then go to a condo, and then move up to a house, and you lived your whole life cycle in the community. And that planned community idea, there is a lot of high density stuff going in. It's meeting resistance.
Except the problem with that, Paul, is that we have not addressed the affordability component.
No.
So now you have these places. But I'm still basically.
What can you do to affect? Give me a quick 60-second answer on affordability. How can you? There's only so much land, and there's more people that want to live here. You got three problems. One, they're aging in place. They're not going to opening up inventory. Two, there's no place to build more inventory except up, and people don't want to see it become Manhattan and San Francisco. And three, the land cost, because there's more the demand. There's more people want to be here.
You want to build 300 units. You have to provide a certain number of them at affordable, controlled rent. Period.
I think that you're right. But look, Orange County is never going to become San Francisco or Manhattan. It's just not. It's never. It's not in the cards. I mean, like it's.
Orange County is fighting tooth and nail not to even become Santa Monica.
Right.
Well, that's the issue. Look, it's a lack of supply. At the end of the day, it's a pure lack of supply, and there's only and our best, like I said, I think we have to have higher density development, and it doesn't have to be all over the county, but there needs to be a place for it.
But it's a lack of supply that is a result of the fact that, again, we did not do a preventive strategic thinking. We built single-family homes all over the place. We built them right up against each other. We did not provide enough work elements and possibly, right now everybody is either remote commuting,
right,
or people are basically running their own business, and there's a growth in things that are short-term lease situations where you can basically just rent like we are in here in this studio, right? This is a very much a trend that will continue to happen. As
I'm a trending person.
You're a trending person of 62 years old. Yeah, yes, you are. We're very trending. But the thing about it is, when you're going to do nothing but subdivisions of single-family homes, and you're now going to basically, 10 miles away, you're going to basically put a grocery store, and 30 miles away is going to be the center where you basically work. When you're city planning, this is what I'm talking about, the planning, the policy side of it.
It's funny you say that. I got Irvine in my district, which is like the ultimate planned city in America.
Right.
Like you talk about a city that they really spent years and years. There's like a master plan that goes back from
right,
which is interesting, but it's.
They didn't foresee the changes taking place, though. They didn't foresee, to Rad's point, we're still arguing about whether we need a toll road, and yet we're going towards driverless cars. We're always looking backwards and not forwards.
Not only driverless cars, but in affluent communities, the chances are there's a lot of people that are basically working either out of their house or don't have the 9-to-5 component. And I'm not against solutions, but when you propose a toll road that basically really to deal with traffic congestion that's coming from San Diego County and from Irvine down south. Okay, running it through a bottleneck of a geographical area of the elbow of Dana Point and the bowl of Pico on San Clemente, you're not really doing anything to relieve. All you are doing is you're disrupting communities, you're building a toll road through established communities, and you're basically then connecting to the 5 to continue to San Diego. If you want that, then run it around. But to put it through there, you're doing nothing other than bringing more traffic into an already congested situation. That is not a smart way of spending money. That's not fiscally conservative.
And it doesn't take into effect the changing the changing driving patterns.
But you know, what we need is not no more toll roads. Is what we need is public transit.
Yes.
You know, it's I remember when I was a kid. There was,
absolutely more times on the trains, more destinations, more schedule.
Well, no, I remember when I was a kid, there was a proposal. I think it would have gone from UCI to South Coast Plaza up to all the way to Fullerton,
Yeah.
and it got voted down by the voters here. But you know, it's we got to give people other options of public transit that works too. It needs to be smart. It needs to be well thought out. We need to have better urban planning.
Okay,
but you guys fought the double track when we tried to get a double track railroad through
It's
the
not
area.
about the train. Okay, it's about the fact that the community that fought the double track, San Clemente, which was a correct thing to do, all right, then turned around and brought up the idea of a trolley system in South County 5 years ago, okay? And then they took the idea and they said, well, let's make it a tri-city trolley. And it was Dana Point and San Juan and San Clemente. And they couldn't get buy-in from Dana Point and San Juan. So guess what happened? The idea got shelved and San Clemente ended up without a trolley, right? Forward, last year, oh, well, let's put the trolley in. At this point, Laguna Beach has a trolley, San Juan has a trolley, Dana Point has a trolley, Mission Viejo has a trolley. They've been operating for a number of years. And San Clemente, the person that came up with the idea earlier, is the one who's last to the party to run a trolley, right? And we're going to run it on an experimental basis, and we'll see what happens. Guess what? First season out, they extended it 2 more months because people were using it. And the majority of people that were using it were locals. Because if I don't want to use my car for picking up something, I will park it and I will take the friggin' trolley. Guess what? An additional bonus and benefit, I get to drink. And I don't have to drive around town. So my point is, to your point, I think, Kai, you're correct. Alternative, progressive ideas of doing things differently.
Sounds kind of liberal to me.
It's about how to... Orange County has been this great place. I grew up here. A lot of people come here because it's such a great place to live, and how do we maintain that for the future? You know, it's how do we make sure that it stays a great place to live? And you know, you go back to that report I read about in terms of what are the long-term issues facing Orange County, and there are all things that we need to address, because you know, you talk about Detroit. In 1950, Detroit had the highest median income and highest medium home value in the United States.
You're really, yeah.
And now it's...
And in the 1920s, it was Silicon Valley. It's where manufacturing was being invented. Henry Ford and cars and everything else, yeah.
And now you have a city of that was built for 2 million people where the population is about 600,000.
Yeah, exactly.
And Detroit gets maligned, but I've seen things from the hospitality side and from the construction side that downtown Detroit, because of the economic downturn, has actually provided opportunities now for buildings that are being adaptively reused. The old fire station building is, you know, and it is going to have a renaissance.
And I believe that very firmly. You know, I can see that. I just meant from the perspective of just because things are good here now, just because economically we're doing well here, it doesn't mean it's going to stay that way.
Absolutely.
We got to maintain. We got to fight for that future.
So I got a question for you. I mean, you grew up in Irvine.
Mm-hmm.
You went to Michigan. You left basically. You went to D.C.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, what brought you back?
Look, I always thought I was going to come back here. You know, it was you know, there's a reason I took the California bar when I did, as opposed to any other bar, because I looked at DC as kind of a place where I would go and you know, do public service. Then I would come back here, kind of reestablish myself, and then look into running for office. Obviously, what brought me back at this immediate time is I decided that something had to be done about Donald Trump and something had to be done about the travel. It was just such a critical time.
But you could have run anywhere. You could have run anywhere. My point is, was it family? I mean, I'm trying to establish what is the roots that bring you back to Orange County, because you're choosing to be of service here.
Well, look, I've always thought of Orange County as my home. Like my family's lived here for 40 years. My parents, aunts, uncles, all that stuff, and it's always the place I come back to. And I've just always, when I think of home, I think of Orange County.
And a lot of these family members that we're talking about are people that will be impacted by some of the stuff that we're talking
100%,
about. Right?
Yeah.
How many people are running?
What I'm trying to point out to people that are listening to us, Guy, that for us that we talk about this stuff, this is, you know, somebody like Paul is, oh, I'm 62 years old, so I'm sort of an authority to talk about this stuff. For me, I'm about to turn 53 in a couple of weeks, and for me, it may not be me right now, but it's very much my parents that are in their 80s. It's very much me in less than 20 years, that I'm basically facing those same situations. So I have maybe it's the opportunity and the energy to do something, to try to do something today that would maybe selfishly would benefit me in the future, but it has a direct impact on people I love right now.
And
So
it was Barack Obama who said you can either complain about something or you can do something about it.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to complain. I'm going to go do.
Last question. We got to wrap it up. How many people running on the Democratic side, and is anybody running on the Republican side against Mimi? Is Greg Rath going to run against her?
Right now it's just Mimi. In terms of candidates, I think I lose count because there are so many. But but I would say that there are 6 or 7 others. Who are also running.
Yeah,
Okay.
there are some, and some of them are listed. I did want to share, because we mentioned it a number of times, the report that we're talking about. It's called Orange County on the Cusp of Change, and it was back in 2014. It can be downloaded, and I urge anybody to read it, especially with the coming election. It's got good background for Orange County, what's going on, because you're going to go, oh my God, what happened, right? Read this thing. This came out in 2014. It can be found at www.labor.ucla.edu, and you're looking for Orange County on the Cusp of Change. It's in their report sections. You can download it. It is really eye-opening, and when you think back that this was written in 2014 and what it was talking about, it talked about emerging minorities, okay? And we kind of started talking about that before we got on the air, and I just want to touch on this. Emerging minorities traditionally have suffered from 2 things. They've suffered from financial means, because they're emerging minorities, and educational level. And I want to point out to everybody who's watching, who's been listening, I didn't want to bring it up at the beginning, but it's perfect to kind of close the show with. Here's a gentleman that is basically from a minority. He has roots, deep roots in the community, 40 years plus family. He has people that are directly impacted by what does get done and what doesn't get done in terms of policies. Unfortunately or fortunately, it happens in D.C., right? And these communities are not unable to fund their own candidates. There's a new dawn coming when it comes to minorities, right? You got Santa Ana and the Latino communities. Those communities are becoming powerhouses, not only in terms of community involvement, but also in terms of funding and financing and successful businesses and so forth. And people are looking for ways to do things differently. If you want to call it progressive and basically shun it and throw it to the side, go ahead and do that. I choose to look at it as being the opposite of insanity. And the insanity is doing the same thing over and over and over again and expecting a different result.
I always say it's of these communities, whether it's the Iranian American community or these other communities, they're all sleeping giants. It's because they've never been involved, they've never been engaged before, and now is the time to teach them. It's not, we're not the first immigrant communities to come to America and have to learn to be political.
In fact, if you again look at the movie reel versus the snapshot, every minority community that's come to the United States has gone through an evolutionary process that you find communities in Southern California right now going through. And we definitely, nobody would argue if you were talking about Latinos, right? Nobody would even argue about that.
Interesting
Nobody would even argue if you talked about even Vietnamese, right?
Yeah.
Because of Garden Grove. But you got an Indian population. You've got a Persian population. You got a Middle Eastern MENA population.
And Chinese population.
Those are absolutely correct. Sleeping giants.
But interestingly enough, the communities that you just rattled off, we're opening up a whole other can of worms here at the last moment, have not been politically
at all
involved.
And that's
the Chinese community, the Iranian community, the Indian community, they have not been politically active in the same way that my ancestors in the Irish community came over and were discriminated against and at the bottom, and they formed Tammany Hall, and they formed political associations.
Wait a minute.
But now's that time. Now's the time. The moment. The idea that the president of the United States get up and say, "You can't come to this country because you're Iranian." I don't care anything. He doesn't care about anything else. I don't care if you're a doctor. He doesn't care about anything.
And you cannot, if you're an American citizen, actually have family join you.
Yeah.
No.
I could get married, and because of the president's executive order, my own grandmother couldn't come to watch me get married.
Yeah.
If you think about that.
So the crazy thing about this is, you touched on it. I don't know if you noticed that you touched on it when you were saying yes, but unlike these minorities have not been engaged, unlike the Irish and the Italians who have been
organized.
No, you said
Oh,
you were
we were
discriminated against, right? So you
dramatically.
touched on it. That's exactly the point.
That's how we fought back against discrimination, and that's how we worked our way up.
So the
we got
worst
politically
possible
active.
thing to do
is not to
is
be
to
active.
discriminate against the minority, because that is the surest way to get that
Rile
minority
'em
to
up.
engage.
Well, you know, it's something you see in the Iranian American community is people are always complaining about AIPAC. They're like, oh my God, they're so powerful. It's a conspiracy. I'm like, no, it's not. You know what? They play the game, like, and they're good at it. They're better at it than everybody else.
You know what? Thank you, Kai, because everything is right there.
Yeah.
The playbook is right there.
Exactly.
All you have to do is open your eyes and instead of complain, watch what has been effective and what has worked, and then tailor it to what you want to achieve.
Right.
There's no conspiracy. They've done a very good job of building influence in this country that as a lobby, and there's nothing to stop anyone else from doing the same
Yeah,
thing.
but you see, and I'm sorry, it's
And
human.
what's AIPAC?
Human,
I'm sorry,
it's
what is AIPAC?
AIPAC is the lobby for Israel,
Oh, okay. All right.
and they're one of the most after the NRA. I think they're the most powerful lobby in Washington D.C.
Right.
And it's because they're very good at what they do, and people complain about them, and it's because they don't actually, you know, they're not even trying to have a seat at the table.
You can
Right.
you can complain about somebody who's effective, or you choose to learn from what is effective.
Yeah,
I mean, honestly,
And clearly, Jews had
Donald Trump's
in the face
campaign-
of the Holocaust said never again. And the Jewish American community has organized in a way that's given itself an outsized, powerful voice because of the
Exactly.
But to marginalize the Jewish community and say that the only motivation force behind their success is because they will never they are saying never again. No, there's a lot more to it. It's called influence. It's called involvement. It's called
Yeah, but
community
I think that was.
engagement.
I think that's when they really organized in a way that
Right.
we've got to. We can't sit idly by and hope others will take care
Well,
of our
that's the
future.
thing, right?
Yeah.
Like people, like you want to have that same kind of influence, then you got to play the game too,
Right.
And you got to do the same. You know what? Like it's like you said, that's the playbook. You
the
want
playbook is right there.
the playbook's right there for every one of these communities. You want to have influence in Washington. You want to have influence in our politics. You care about these things. There's a clear playbook how you go about doing it, and you know we got to learn. We're not.
Where do you choose to spend your energy?
So
in
you're
the,
both
in the complaining, or in the actually doing.
So you opened up a door I wasn't going to walk through, but I'm going to walk through. I'm going to give you a couple more minutes to walk through it here.
Yeah.
Obviously, Raad is Palestinian,
Of course.
My father is Palestinian from Haifa. Yes.
and Kia's father is an Iranian American.
Yep.
And right now, those minorities do have.
And by the way, there are Arabs that are Christian. Greek Orthodox, I just celebrated
They're
Christmas.
quite- they're
you know,
quite-
7
they're-
days after.
There are
so,
quite a
you know,
few.
Yeah.
And so I don't know how to delicately
I'm
say
serious.
this, but
I hate to pierce people's bubbles. No, I don't really, right? About the fact that we're not all
but
this
my
little
perception
neat
is
little box.
maybe I'm overstating this. My perception is since 9/11, the Arab community, the Middle Eastern communities have tried to hunker down and keep a low profile.
Until you piss
rather
us off,
than-
and anybody who knows those communities knows that
rather than invoke the wrath or fear or backlash or
yeah,
whatever.
but you see, we're second generation,
Right.
right? We're children of immigrants, right? So we actually, truly or not, believe that we actually have rights as American citizens,
What?
right?
What?
And so therefore, we're going to basically roll the dice. You know, we're going to say hell.
So I
no.
guess what I'm saying is, and Rod's had the Arab American. He's on the Arab America Council. He's
Everyone
had the groups
Civic
in here.
Council.
And
Which again is again, it's not religious, it's not politically partisan. It is there to be engaged in civic responsibility and to encourage other Arab Americans to basically be
take your seat at the table.
Well, but to also to be beneficial to their communities, to be partners in the improvement of their neighborhoods.
So is
Take it-
this an election cycle
Sound like county
where that
community
will
organizer.
break through? Would that be a barrier in Orange County, and particularly in Irvine, to have a Middle Eastern name?
No,
Or a benefit because there is a large percentage of Middle
Right.
Eastern, mostly Persians, I would think, in Irvine.
People have told me all kinds of things about my name. There, people have been like, "You should change your name. You should get a Starbucks name like Ken." That a guy, I swear to God, people said it to me. A member of Congress told me you got to change your name, and that a person with the name Kia Hamadancy can never get elected to anything,
Yeah.
let alone
right.
Congress.
Right.
And I tell people, look, I reject that logic in a country where Barack Hussein Obama was twice
Yeah,
elected president of the United States. And you know, one of the things we saw in November was all kinds of groundbreaking elections. You know, and you know, we're going to see the same thing next November. You know, after Donald Trump said, "No, you can't come to this country for Iranian," we're going to elect the first Iranian American member of Congress in the history of the United States.
There you go.
I talked about Michigan. There's someone running there to be the first Muslim governor in the history of the United States. There are all kinds of firsts that we're going to be right on the brink on. And my hope is that come November 2018, that's gonna be the story of these communities who stepped up.
Amen. I'm glad you addressed that. I was trying to dance around that, but I appreciate the answer.
Here's the reality.
Right.
Okay, the reality is you have people.
You got to get your mic closer.
You have people that came to this country that basically established businesses. It's just like we were talking about the Indian community and the Patels that are running in New York, right? They have worked, they have built, they have set roots. They are as American as anybody, right? And they believe in the system. I mean, if this gentleman across the table from me did not believe in the system, he wouldn't be running for office. If he did not believe, because this wasn't something that he picked up from his father's stories about Iran. I'll tell you that right now. Right? This is purely as American as it gets.
Of Iran?
If you are going to be of service and stand up and run for office, I don't know how much more American could you be other than that. That is as American as apple pie, right? And these communities, when they see somebody that is from their community, that is especially engaged at an early age. It's not like, oh, I'm in my retirement, in my swan song, I'll go run for office, right? This support doesn't just come from your immediate neighborhoods. It comes from the overall community. This is a moment of pride that somebody is willing to stand up and say, I want to be of service in the most American possible way of being elected to office.
Is that why his website says something like "Run Kia Run"?
Does it say that on my website?
Oh, it does. I thought there was something that said "Run Kia Run."
No, that's what he did on your website. When
I'd like to see all immigrant communities take their place at the table and recognize.
Would you ever sit today and say, "Oh my God, he's an Italian running for Congress"? You'd never think that.
No.
Oh my God, he's Irish running for president. Would you ever say that?
There was a time.
Right.
But was a time in my lifetime that it
But
happened.
again, are you a snapshot person or are you a movie reel person?
So that's why I say, I'll just interject this. So that's why I say to those who aren't Iranians, who are subject to the nativism, the backlash, the oh my God, we've got too many of them, and why aren't there more of us here? The us, we're all immigrants. We are all Iranians. We are all Mexicans. We are all immigrants to this country here. And the minute we forget that,
and it's
we
not limited
forget
to California, by the way.
We forget what truly makes America great is the fact that we've blended all these groups together. We brought them together not because of common religion, not because of common language or tribes, is because we all believed in three things: freedom. We believed in liberty, equality, and opportunity.
We believed in a better way. Yeah. You know the definition of progressive? We believed in a better way.
Well, we believe in the idea that if you work hard, you can make it in America.
Yeah.
That's straight
no matter
up.
who you are,
no
what
matter
you
who
believe,
you are, what you believe in, we're going to give you the tools that if you work for it, you can get it.
Exactly.
I'll tell you from personal experience, right? If you're outside, if you're not in the United States, and you're basically coming, and we legally immigrated and we did all this stuff, right? One of the most out-of-the-box way of thinking, one of the most way of possibly leading to a better result. I'm trying to avoid the word as much as possible, but I'm going to say it. One of the most progressive things to do is to come to the United States and be an American citizen.
Right.
So when we fight against what is in our best interest in leading to better results, and we start labeling things and spending energy on that crap instead of basically putting energy in the doing, like this gentleman here is looking to do by running for Congress, is when we start killing what it means to be an American.
Right.
We talked about Reagan at the beginning, and Reagan talked about this country as the city on the hill.
Yeah.
The model for all the world to follow.
The
shining city on the hill, the beacon. And you talk about why I'm running for Congress is because I want to make sure it stays that way. I want to make sure America is the place where people still dream of coming, where people still think anything's possible.
Right.
I think Kai just wrapped himself in Reagan.
There's never a bad thing.
There's nothing more.
Nothing a bad thing to do in Orange County, but
well, there's never a bad idea in Orange County to be tied in with Reagan.
Kai, thank you for being here.
Thank you so much.
It's awesome. I wish you luck. Let's give the website again.
Yeah, Kia for OrangeCounty.com.
You keep saying Kaya. It's Kia.
Kia, I said.
Kia.
You say Kaya.
KIAFOR OrangeCounty.com.
Kia like the car.
Right.
Yeah.
But and check out his website. I think this is the face of 2018 right here. And do check out that report that I gave the link to. I'll post it on the page as well. You know what? It's going to be a long year.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun year.
Right?
We're gonna win.
So why don't we
not just me, but like
but here's the thing that's interesting too with you is that I think for a lot of people that are paying attention to this and why I basically asked you why you were running and the stuff like that and how you got to work on the Hill and stuff like that is a lot of people may be interested in this. Like want to pursue this, want to be of service,
story.
but how do I go about it? And so, would you come back
Oh, absolutely. Look. I think one of the problems about we have with Congress is it's not diverse. And I mean, I want to talk about not just the membership, but even like the staff level.
Yeah.
It's just not diverse enough.
Right.
It's all people. It's all the same people from the same backgrounds. And
You mean it's old white guys like me? Okay.
well, I mean, yeah. not gonna lie with you. It's important that we have these. I tell this story when Tom Harkin retired. I knew he was retiring as of January 2013, so I had a year to look for a job. And I walked and there was one particular senator who's a still sitting Democratic member of the Senate, and I walked into his office, and he looks at my resume, sees my name, he says, "Kia Hamadancy, you've done so well for yourself in this country." And I think to myself as if I got here yesterday.
Yeah.
And then he
Coming
asked,
to America. Yeah.
right, and then he asked me, "Where are you from?" And I told him, "Well, I'm from California." "But where are you from?" "No, I'm from Orange County."
From Irvine.
And but where are your parents from? Where were they born? Well, they've lived in Orange County for about 40 years, but they're originally from Iran. And there's people need to see, and people have this idea that if your name's not Joe Smith, you're not American.
Right.
And one of the reasons we need this country is so much more than just Joe Smiths. And one of the reasons we need more people in Congress of all kinds of backgrounds is for people to see that there are so many different ways of being an American.
Yes.
That it's not just the white guy named Joe Smith. And there's nothing wrong with that guy. But we're more than that as a country.
The last time I looked at Joe Smith, it was a black guy that lived in Harlem.
Well, there you go.
Right, exactly. So even that doesn't match, right?
But in this same senator then went through every Iranian person he's ever met in his life, trying to figure out if I knew them.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
hilarious.
right.
So that's a sad reflection, right? But
I did not go to work for him.
right. Well, obviously not, right? But
Because all you Iranians know each other, right? There's just
Well,
a handful of you out
we
there.
all-
You
we
all
all-
know each other. And
just like you Irish.
Right. Make it easier for the Department of Homeland Security.
But I think definitely, if anything, get engaged, get involved. If you're not going to run for office, find a way to volunteer and give back to the community. And definitely don't just sit by the sidelines in 2018 or any election cycle, be it local, municipal, Congress, whatever. These are people that you're going to basically, whether you vote or you don't, are going to basically represent your interests. So find out about them. Go out and meet them in person. They're always open. Okay, there's always opportunities, especially before they get elected, to be able to reach them. No, it's true, right?
Or even after.
After
they won't
staff, right?
They won't answer your phone
Right,
call
they won't
after
answer your
that.
I promise you that if I get elected, I'll come to your show whenever you want.
Kia's never going to show up again. But anyway, and please do come back because I think it's
absolutely.
important to share the journey as you go through this, okay, and not just the end result. And hopefully people will get something out of it.
Well, I'm happy to come back whenever you like.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay.
And join us next week. We will we actually have the whole month of January already booked. So
What?
Yeah, absolutely. And we put out a calendar. So check the Raad Life Facebook page. There's a calendar on there that has everybody that's already scheduled and confirmed for January. We're starting to fill up on February, so it is an election year, and you know me, I'm not going to shy away from candidates.
Oh, boy.
Right? So
there are a lot of great candidates running in Orange County, not just for Congress, but in all kinds of seats. And it's also important that people don't focus just on the congressional races.
oh no,
That Fran Sedea, who's the chair of our party, talks about. We need to win up and down the ticket, and there are a lot of opportunities. And this is how one of the things the Republican Party does really well is they build up the farm team, and we need to start cultivating that talent ourselves too, because we got a lot of leadership of the Democratic Party is all in their 70s or older,
right?
And it's time for a new, young, fresh face of leadership, and it all starts at the local office.
You know what, Kia? The funny thing is that what the Democratic Party is going through right now is exactly what any extended family, multi-generational family goes through, right? There's a change of the guard, and there's a resistance to the change of the guard, and it's going to take a little bit of this and that and some bad blood and whatever, and eventually, every single time, there is a change of the guard that happens. And Fran is somebody I know, and you're absolutely right. The playbook's right there on the Republican Party and what has been successful. And we just pick on the Republican not by name, but because it's been a party that's been successful in Orange County and has been able to achieve its goals and set guidelines of what they wanted to achieve and get it. And so there's plenty to learn from.
We talk about the playbook's right there.
Yeah.
And it's look, I wake up every day wishing that Donald Trump wasn't president of the United States, but the silver lining of this all is that it's really, really woken people up. And
sometimes it takes that.
And sometimes the thing is the most the response is how we respond as a country, how we respond as a party is going to be the real critical part. Because if we respond by really taking an inward look, really deciding what we want to be as a party, and really taking a step forward by electing these diverse people around the country who are really going to do work for their communities to make things better, that's going to be a great thing. And, you know, like I said, Donald Trump, I wake up every day wishing he wasn't president, but you know what? He's not going to be for that much longer.
Yeah, but you know what?
From your lips to God's ears.
Well, and I mean that whether it's 2020.
But you, again, repeat to what you said earlier, is you get to choose. What do you do about it? Do you complain about it, or do you just do something about it? And what that something could be, you know, doing something different in your community garden, or actually running for office, or, you know, whatever, right? You get to choose how to put your energy. Do
You know what I get to
complain or do you do
choose?
something? You get to choose to cut us off.
I get to choose to cut you off.
Okay.
We've gone
Thank you
way
so
over.
much.
Thanks,
All right.
thanks, guys.
I appreciate it.
You have been listening to the Raad Life radio show with your host and age explorer, Rad Gantos, brought to you on the one and only octalkradio.net. Join us again next week as we continue our journey of discovery into life's challenges, opportunities, options, and all the latest and greatest things that come with getting older.